What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Lunch with the Clydesdale. It is lunchtime. Time to hang out with my friends. Man, StreamYard is acting goofy. I see Corey in the chat. Corey's with me every Wednesday. He has seen some of the streamline funkiness. And man, it took me 3 shots to launch this show today. Man, what a mess. Wonder what's going on with StreamYard, if I'm going to have to look at another software, something like that. I don't know. But yeah, we are live. It is lunchtime. I get to hang with all of you. Jody, Denise, Helson, Corey, what's going on? So good that you guys are all here today. I got a lot of stuff to kind of clean up from the weekend that we missed last night during the show, or that I just got in too much of a rant mode that I forgot to talk about, or all that kind of stuff. The first thing I wanted to talk about is, as we were ending the show last night, Hiller released that reel, a clip of last night's show before we were even off the air. There is no weirder feeling than looking down at your phone and saying, Hiller mentioned you in a reel, and then Hiller wants you to collaborate on a reel, and we're not even off the air yet. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what part of last night's show did he pick? What did he pick out? Because I was really cranky last night, really cranky. And I went off a few times, so I don't know what he was picking. I don't know if it was something that Jamie said, Carolyn said, or I said. So that was wild, really wild. But then it turned out it was my GHD rant, and that someone in the space had reached out to me and accused me of group thought and my rant about that. So that's what it was about. And I said it, I own it. That is what I believe. I believe that too many times the people that do it the right way get screwed in this space right now. And but I want to clear up. We were talking about the online semifinal. We were not talking about the WFP. The WFP did not have a standard for the GHD sit-up. So it was a Wild West. You could do it however you wanted to do it. And I said to Jamie after the show last night, I'd rather have that and everybody have the same opportunity to do it however they want to do it than to have a standard that's not upheld. So that's kind of what I believe there. And it's still not ideal. I would rather have a good standard that actually provides the fitness test it's supposed to provide than the Wild West. But if it's going to be one or the other, I would rather have no standard and let everybody have the same opportunity and a level playing field than to have a standard that's not going to be upheld. And some people will do it because it's right and it's the right thing to do. And other people will then skirt the system and they get an unfair advantage. So that, just to clear up with that last night. Denise says, can I just voice my opinion? Of course you can. I enjoyed watching the WFP last weekend. I did very much. I enjoyed the WFP as much as I enjoy Rogue, the games, and probably better than Wadapalooza. I hate events that try to go 20 lanes wide and then broadcast that for people, and it's impossible to see every lane when you do that. French Throwdown did that this weekend. It made it impossible to kind of see everything. Wadapalooza does that. They've gone 30 wide at events, which makes it impossible to see. The 2 best events so far this season have been Mayhem and the WFP, in my opinion. Both of them kept the heats to 10 or less, making it much easier to watch. Mayhem even went smaller than that at times, which made it really cool to watch. Those have been the 2 best competitions to watch on the stream all season long. Corey, Wadapalooza is always a cluster because it's super hard to keep up with what's happening. It is. There's just way too many lanes. Way too many lanes. And even that being there in person, like if you get a seat on one end of the stadium, you can't see the other half of the venue and the athletes. And it's just impossible to do that. Thank you for the kind words, Andrew Sten. Sunday Night CrossFit Talk is becoming the place to be. I hope so. I mean, and I said it last night, like Carolyn and Jamie both are nerds in the space, and they're athletes. They watch everything. They have such good opinions. They know what's going on in the space. And I'm glad that I'm able to highlight them, as well as sometimes unleash Cranky Scott. Denise says, so for Masters Games last year, they told us to get over the bar however we wanted for the bar facing burpees, easier to judge. I think that's what happened at WFP. They did not want to have the judging be the issue in the events, and that's why the GHD was given no standard other than touching the floor behind you and touching the pad in front of you. And so there were not going to be any judging issues. But if you look down the line and you've done CrossFit for any time at all, and you saw the form used on those GHDs, it looked awful. Now, again, I would rather have that. I would rather have no standard and allow that than to have a standard that isn't being upheld. But it still doesn't look good. Denise, it's great that they have different opinions. It is. They're really good. Andrew Sten, Denise, getting over the bar, however, isn't as much of an advantage to the movement on the GHD. Where you sit does give an advantage, in my opinion. Yeah, I think that Carolyn said it best by allowing people to be on the front of closer to your feet, your butt closer to your feet on the GHD. You're turning a GHD into an ab mat sit-up. Halpin, same with when Waza did strict pull-ups versus what became the standard of arms extended, chin over bar. Yeah. Sometimes they just do it to make it easier on the judge. But I think Carolyn made a great point that the GHD standard we shouldn't talk about the hip or the butt. We should talk about the back. The back should not touch the pad. If the back is touching the pad, then you're just doing an ab mat sit-up. If the back is not touching the pad, then you're getting a GHD sit-up. And that is easier to judge, easier to see, and is probably easier to understand. But if you're going to make it an ab mat sit-up, why lug all this heavy equipment to these venues? Why not just do an ab mat sit-up? Because as she said, nobody's even breaking GHDs anymore. So the WFP released the Tour Points, and I just wanted to kind of go over them real quick. They are going to be in the same order as the event points from yesterday, but where this is going to come into play is when we get a second event, and the events will have different finishes than the Tour Points. And I think that will make it actually easier for people to understand the concept of the season. But a couple things I did want to point out is the way the points are distributed. And so if you look at the men's points here, the first couple are 15 points apart. So Austin got 500, James got 485, Jason Hopper got 470. Then after third, it's only a 10-point differential for a while, till I think 10th place. So then the next, from Jeff Adler to Noah Olson, there's 10 points in between each contestant or athlete. Then when we go to 11th, it's 8 points. So then 8th to 20th is 8 points between each competitor. And then when you go to the 20th to 30th, we're down to 5 points in between each competitor. So the higher you're up on the leaderboard, the more separation in the points that you get and the bigger that spread can be, and why that's an advantage when you go to the next tour stop to have a bigger lead going into that. My only criticism of this release is the challengers earn points too up to 250. So Tudor would have had 250. They should have added those to these tour points. Those tour points, each point equals the same as these tour points. Now, it would just start as 31st would be Tudor, and it would go down to 50th as the last place finisher in the challenger division. But they could have added those here, and then you saw that you would see the top 50 going into Tour Stop 2. And in Tour Stop 2, you're probably going to have different cast of characters in those challenger, either Challenger Pro or Challenger divisions. And then the tour points will actually be more than 50 after the next event. But I wanted to just point that out, that was released this morning. And again, they're in the same order as the finish of this tour stop, but where it's going to shake up is once we get to Tour Stop 2. Denise, I hate GHDs just for my back, but we do a lot in our gym. Yeah. And Halpin is working on that over lunch that includes challenger points. So there's that. The other thing I wanted to talk about is I watched, because the weekend was so compressed with so much stuff we had to cover last night, I didn't get to watch the Hiller Hippensteel until I was going to bed last night. What a great video. That it's a great example of the storytelling that I've been talking about that's been missing from the space, and I hope comes back into the Road to the Games that CrossFit is releasing this summer. But the storytelling of walking into David Hippensteel's house and seeing a man that hangs rings in his living room and in his stairway to the second floor, because in the wintertime, he can't do his muscle ups outside. So he does them in the staircase, and then he uses them to stretch in the living room while he's watching TV. And he has apparatus everywhere to help him with his mobility all the time. He's 69 years old, and he knows that mobility is a limiting factor. And so he does that. They introduce you to his wife and all the things she does to help out. Hiller and him work out together, and Hiller helps him with his mobility, his depth on his squats. It's really a cool video to watch, and really cool to see how David gets excited that he got full depth on his front and back squats and things like that. It's a really charming video, and I highly recommend it to everybody. I've gotten to know David over the years doing the behind the scenes of the Masters, and I've run into him at events. He's such a nice guy. I'm glad that they were able to bury the hatchet on some things and kind of talk about what happened from each one of their perspectives and why it happened. And it's a really good video and nice storytelling from Hiller. Really nice storytelling. I also watched, and again, this is all over the map. This is just cleaning up notes from the weekend. Corey says, dude, the Hippensteel video might be the best one he's done yet. I am way more a fan of Hip now. Yeah, I've always been so when that went down, I was actually, when that first video came out, I was at an event where David was at. And we talked a lot that weekend. And he was going to come on the show to give his side of the story, but we could never get it kind of to his, because I believe that you should have full movement and you should meet the standards. And we could just never get to an agreement as how we were going to format the show. But yeah, it's a great video. I agree, Corey. I thought the Hopper one and this one are the two best ones he's done, and they're probably the last two. I think he's just getting into a really good groove, having conversations with people. They had a great conversation about his elbow. It's a conversation that needs to be had more in the Masters competition. Totally. And his shoulder, that both of them have limiting factors, and that you, as a judge, you are supposed to know if they have a limiter when they come out on the floor, and you're supposed to factor that in. And Hiller makes a great point at like, what point do we lose the integrity of what fitness is? It was a great conversation, Denise, I think Hiller did a great job. I understand David a little bit better now. David is so easy to talk to. He's in the behind the scenes from last year's CrossFit Games. We had a great conversation. It was like 8 or 10 minutes, and it was so good I didn't want to cut any of it, so I left it all in. And it's really, really good. Hiller gently telling David that maybe if you can't lock out, you should compete, and Dave seemingly agreeing was so cool. I was annoyed with David at the time, as I have always worked on moving well, and I have older people highlighted as bad movers made me sad. I can see that. And David admitting to the way he handled it was not ideal was really nice too. So, so behind the scenes, WFP put out behind the scenes while the event was going on this weekend. Really hard to keep up with that and keep up with the event in itself. But in behind the scenes 3, they're interviewing some of the people they brought on to do media. And what I found fascinating was that a lot of them had never, ever done media for, never ever done media for fitnessing before. They were hired from outside the space to come in and do this. And I like the idea of having some fresh ideas to the broadcast. And I think that showed a lot in the WFP broadcast. I've said this in the past before. I think CrossFit hiring the same crew to do the broadcast every time, it's been the same since 2013. Not much has changed. I thought that they did better angles of the footage from the floor. I thought they did a better job of, when they did do close-ups, it was more of like a 3 or 4 athlete close-up as opposed to just one person in the lane. And so you could see other things going on when they did a close-up, but they had a lot more wide angle shots where you could see the whole floor and where people stood during the race. So I want to commend them for trying some new and different and innovative things. And then that kind of rolls into the RedBull effect. So RedBull was a major sponsor. And one thing we didn't really talk about last night on the show is that RedBull money is different than like a grips company money or GoRuck money or a shoe company money, unless you're like one of the big dogs. RedBull is a major player in sports in the world. They are big in the the X Games style sports, and they sponsor a lot of those. So much so they have their own streaming channel. There is a RedBull channel out there where they broadcast niche and extreme sports all the time. If WFP gets a relationship with them, that is groundbreaking. That is something that I don't think a lot of people have taken into account in this whole thing. I think some people working on the broadcast were professionals from Finland. They have been involved with Turku you guys hopefully can read it, Tua Mian Pava, which has been broadcast very professionally, not on YouTube though. Yeah, you could tell that they were like from Europe. They were doing an excellent job. It was a new concept, new ideas for them. The one guy said he had never even seen a CrossFit competition before coming to this. And I really like the innovativeness of bringing in some people from outside the space. Halpin said, yeah. And one of the guys also works with the Indianapolis Colts. Yeah, I thought that's why it was different. And thank goodness we have some different ideas and different thoughts. So yeah, I was really happy with that. But RedBull, with them having their own channel, and if World Fitness Project can gain a partnership with them, with whatever happens in these first few events, that's going to be groundbreaking for what happens, because it's different money. It's different money than the CrossFit Games have ever seen, and they have resources that can actually benefit whatever happens here. And Adidas has a lot of money too. Those are two major sponsors that they have, that, because I believe that Reebok is a subset of Adidas. So even when CrossFit had Reebok, it's not as much as getting Adidas as the main sponsor. So, says RedBull has amazing social media, so totally agree with that. Yeah. They've been around the block, and they have cash flow, and they have resources. Unlike anything ever seen in the fitness space before. That is for sure. The other thing, I'm just cleaning up notes, so we're all over the map today. Live versus WFP. You guys all know I've been watching. Andrew says Reebok was owned by Adidas in the past, but not anymore, I believe. But I believe when Reebok was sponsoring the games, they were owned by Adidas. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the case. So, if you watch Full Swing, when Live first started, they went after older players who had a little bit more diminished skills, and then offered them this guaranteed money. And that's why they moved from the PGA Tour to the Live Tour. And then it wasn't until they kind of established themselves, made some headlines with the money they were offering, that some of the bigger players then jumped over to Live. When World Fitness Project first started, I think the same thing happened. They went after the Pat Vellners and the Chandler Smiths, people who had established names, established social media accounts, tons of followers, but maybe didn't have the skill set anymore to be dominant on the floor. And then once that was out there and the headlines went out there that this was happening, then some of the more young and upcoming athletes decided to join the WFP. It's really eerie how similar this has been. And last night we talked about like why you would pick the 40 you pick, or the 40 you pick, 20 men, 20 women. And I think a lot of it had to do with who were you easily going to sway to come for the money, and who had the most following to get the biggest headline, the biggest news out there. And that's what they did. So, I think that is key to what happened with WFP, and key to what we're seeing today. My final thought on this is, I think we're at a really big juncture for CrossFit. Right now, you have a competitor who put a good weekend together, and let's just call it that. It was a good Good weekend. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the broadcast. Really enjoyed everything about it. Now we have this online semifinal that has to be finally decided on by CrossFit. There was the public review of the videos went out. Now it's in CrossFit's hands to make the final determinations as to penalties and such. There are known issues going on out there. And if CrossFit wants to be a legit sport, and maybe they don't want to be, and that's fine. But if they want to be, they're going to have to come to the plate with a fair and equitable playing field for everybody, as we talked about last night. And so I think that the coming week and a half or however much time is left, maybe it's not even that much time left. CrossFit's going to have to make some rulings that are going to be hard. It's going to be interesting to see what they do. Because I don't know. I don't know if they're capable or not. Halpin says many athletes already have 3 to 5 workouts approved. There's at least one athlete with double-digit needs review and has all 5 workouts reviewed. I would need more information because the email is different if CrossFit reviewed the video or if they went by what the public review was. It's 2 different versions of the email. And I would like to know of those which ones they got for each workout. I know of people who have been getting emails. Everybody I know of got the you passed public review. There wasn't enough of the needs review to force them into a further evaluation. And so I don't know who these athletes are and what they're getting back. But if they're getting back the ones where CrossFit actually did a review, I just hope it was done fairly. That's all. Because I know like Carolyn's gotten some emails back, but hers were on ones that didn't have a lot of down votes. They were and had much more goods than the downs. So I don't know how it's going to play out with other athletes. But I think it's crucial that CrossFit has to take a stand on which way they're going to go with this. And then it is what it is. Right. But it's not about approved or reviewed. It's if you were reviewed by headquarters, the email is different than if they just accepted you based on the public opinion. That's what I'm saying. So I'd like to know, did they have to go to step 2 or not? Yeah. If you didn't have any down votes and you had a ton of up votes, then you get an email saying your video has been approved and moved forward. Mike, I'm not talking about the games. I'm just talking about there are 2 emails that come out for each video to give it the green light or the red or that it's been penalized. And there's 2 green light emails. There's a green light that says, based on the public review, you are approved on this video. And then there's one that says you have been elevated to CrossFit HQ review, and we have determined that your video is good. And both of those are green lights, but it just shows that they went to another step beyond the public review. So that is what I have to say about that. I watched a couple good movies this weekend. I watched Nona's. It's a Vince Vaughn movie about a restaurant that he's opening up. and that he hires grandmothers to be the chefs. It's on Netflix, really good. Highly recommend, family friendly, just feel good movie. Then the other one I watched was not family friendly. It was called Love Hurts, and it is, I don't know the guy's name, but he was in Goonies as the like inventor kid, and then he was in Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark as Rerun in that, I believe was his name. But it's called Love Hurts, and it's a very Jackie Chan kung fu movie. And just from a nostalgia point, I loved it. I loved the Jackie Chan kung fu movie style. It was a lot of fun to watch, but it is not family friendly. And it has kung fu gore in it, almost comic book esque. My wife hated it, just so you know, but I loved it just because of the nostalgic Jackie Chan thing. Denise says, "How did I have time to watch movies this weekend?" Well, we are trapped in the house because of my wife's knee surgery. So what I would, as soon as I was, the nice thing about the WFP and the French Showdown is they were all done early in the day. So I could then go hang out with my wife for the evening. And because she is laid up on the couch or in the bed I brought downstairs, we watch movies. So it's about all we can do right now until she gets more mobile and can get outside for long trips. So Corey says Ki Hui Kwang is the guy who stars in it. And Marshawn Lynch from NFL fame, Raiders and Seahawks, is in the movie as well, and he was awesome. He was really awesome. So, well, thank you, Denise. I try to be a good hubby. It was a lot this weekend trying to watch everything and care to all of her needs throughout the day, but we made it through. Now we're back into the normal swing of the schedule. So yeah. With that, guys, that's the cleanup episode. We had a really, I want to see it because Marshawn is in it. He was really good in it. Denise plus Mother's Day. It was Mother's Day. We kind of forfeited it, and she was cool with that. I did order lunch in for her from a local deli and got her some stuff she wanted. But we couldn't do anything beyond that. And with the daughter moved to Montana, yeah, that was a huge investment helping her get out there. So yeah, it was going to be a simple one anyway. And so, but we enjoyed ourselves for sure. Well, guys, I'm going to get back to work. I have a busy day ahead of me. And you knuckleheads should get back to work as well. Hope you guys had a good time. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Last night was a blast show. I was so cranky last night. I think I had 4 riffs in the middle of last night's show. If you have not seen it already, and many of you have, as the numbers are showing, go check out last night's show. Carolyn and Jamie are the best. And we will see everybody next time on Lunch with the Clydesdale. Bye, guys.